This is how to read Jin Ping Mei Chapter 7. Matchmaker Zhu said that she would marry Meng Sanner, and Miss Young scolded forth Uncle Zhang angrily. 1. The mysterious and strange woman Meng Yulu. Pan Jinlian's story was suspended this time, and Wu Song's return for revenge was also delayed. Jin Ping Mei inserted a new character in the 7th chapter. Meng Yulu is here. Some scholars have commented that this is the unique straw rope-like narrative structure of Jin Ping Mei, which means that new plots are continued all the way and while the old plots are not finished, until they finally become colorful and colorful. In my opinion, this statement is a bit simplistic. Which long-lasting novel does not use this method of writing? Isn't it easy to get tired of aesthetics if several characters are repeated in a single way? Only by constantly introducing new characters, new excitement, and new plots can the story be exciting. Jin Ping Mei intersperses the paragraph with Meng Yulu in the middle of Pan Jinlian's unscrupulous affairs. On the one hand, it probably gives readers a psychological preparation. You are about to enter the wonderful world of Jin Ping Mei. On the other hand, it seems to also give Pan Jinlian a mental preparation. The bonding relationship will never return, and the years to come are waiting for her to start all over again. Pressing on this structural issue, let's take a look at what kind of person Meng Yulu, the protagonist this time, is. Look at the face first when looking at a person. The book of poems is quite long-winded, and the book of embroidered portraits, the moon is painted with smoke, and the makeup is pink and jade. The handsome figure is neither fat nor thin, and it is difficult to lose or increase the pretty figure. There are a few slight numbness on the plain forehead, which is natural and beautiful. The skirt reveals a pair of my little feet are so beautiful. The fragrance of flowers grows wherever I walk, and when I sit down I am overwhelmed with beauty. Look at the language description. Is it beautiful? 1. On the whole, the pink makeup and jade look is generally more elegant and dignified, not as charming as Pan Jinlian. 2. Look at the face. The forehead is slightly pockmarked, and it is naturally beautiful. It is white, but a little pockmarked, but at least the face is delicate. 3. Look at the feet. They may not be very small, but at least they are upright and pitiful. 4. Look at your figure. It's hard to lose or gain a pretty figure, which is a bit nonsense. In fact, sister-in-law Zhu said from the beginning that she had a long and slender figure. The beginning of the description in the poetry book also started with a long and slender figure, but they were deleted from the portrait book. Because society at that time did not like long legs like people today. At that time, short figure was beautiful. This point will be analyzed in depth when Wang Liuer appears. 5. Look at the expression. Everywhere you walk, the fragrance of flowers grows, and when you sit down, you are flooded with beauty. These 2 sentences are really great. Here is an interesting proof. Hulan Chang, a romantic talent in the Republic of China, wrote in his autobiographical work This Life that once he wanted to describe Zhang Ailing's walking, sitting, walking, but could not find a good sentence. At this time, Zhang Ailing said on his behalf, in The Plum in the Golden Vase, it is written that Meng Yulu was fragrant, and the breeze was soft when walking. This sentence does not exist in the poem, and the embroidered image was originally flowers are fragrant wherever I walk. Shui Yingying is described in the Romance of the West Chamber as when the wind blows, the fragrance of clothes grows fine, and the subtleties can be seen literary heart, and when you sit down, you are flooded with beauty. Zhang Ailing, who has obviously played The Plum in the Golden Vase by heart. A few jokes can't cover up the beauty of her body. It can be called Zhang Ailing-style narcissism and self-pity. Although this description has no specific shape, it spiritually describes the charm and magnanimity of a wealthy woman, which is extremely clever. Although it is difficult to distinguish between superior and inferior in words, there is no doubt that Meng Yulu has its own beauty that is different from Pan Jinlian. After looking at appearance, look at family background. In the narrative background of Jin Ping Mei, Meng Yulu has 2 brothers who are doing business outside all year round. This time when she was getting married, her 2 sisters-in-law also appeared. Other than that, her natal family background is unclear, but this is not important. The important thing for a remarried widow is her first husband's family. Meng Yulu's late husband was a cloth merchant. He went out to do business and died outside. He left a large inheritance, including thousands of taels of silver in cash alone, which was by no means a small figure at that time. Due to various reasons, it is actually difficult to compare the purchasing power of silver at that time with the purchasing power of RMB today. However, two data can be provided here, which can be used as a reference for comparison when analyzing economic issues throughout the book. Data 1. Fu Zixin, the manager of Ximen's herbal medicine store, appears at the beginning of this chapter. His salary is 2 taels of silver, which includes food and accommodation. The supervisor's meaning is basically the same as today's store manager. Data 2. As will appear later in the article, after Ximen King became an official, he hired a failed scholar, Wen Bigu, to be his administrative secretary. His salary was 3 taels of silver, including food and accommodation, and gifts during the new year. At that time, Ximen King's position was basically equivalent to a deputy department-level cadre. In other words, the average person's annual salary is only a few dozen taels of silver. The Meng family has thousands of taels of savings, plus other gold, silver, jewelry, goods, etc. To put it bluntly, Meng Yulu's net worth is basically that of a multimillionaire. 2. The godlike matchmaker Sistren Lazu, who is Mrs. Su, matchmaker also. Mrs. Wang is also a matchmaker, and she has become the #1 adulterer and adulteress in history. However, I still have to say that Mrs. Su is the #1 matchmaker in Jin Ping Mei. Before her official appearance, let's take a look at 2 major things she did. 1. Help Ximen King by Chiang Mai for 16 taels of silver. What is this concept? What is the salary of ordinary people in the market for half a year? Not only that, you must know that the little girls from poor families, bought by the Ximen family, such as Xiao Yu and Qiu Zhu, only cost 5 or 6 taels. 16 taels can beat 1 against 3. Moreover, when Ximen King bought Chiang Mai, he bought it on credit. What does this mean? It means that Chiang Mai must be very beautiful. So beautiful that Ximen King has to buy it quickly without spending huge sums of money or using credit. 2. Help Ximen King's daughter marry Chen Jingji. This matter is countless times more important than buying Chiang Mai. You must know that Ximen King at this time was not from a well-to-do family. He married an old daughter in her 20s from a poor family. Although she had 2 concubines, they were both bought from brothels, and they were bound to his qualifications are mediocre. Otherwise Ximen King would not be so smitten with Pan Jinlian that he kills her and seizes his wife. It can be said that Ximen King was quite poor and ordinary before. However, when his daughter married into the Chen family, it was completely different. She was the son of Chen Hong, the in-laws of Admiral Yang, the 800,000-strong imperial army in Tokyo. From then on, Ximen King talked about the 4 in-laws of Admiral Yang in Tokyo. He took great pride in his work and climbed up this ladder to reach a political height that a small businessman in the market could never reach. It can be said that everything is thanks to this godlike Sistren Lazu. Therefore, although this Sistren Lazu is Sistren Lazu who sells green flowers in Ximen King's family according to our language habits, this shows that Sistren Lazu has a very close relationship with Ximen's family. Once she goes to find Ximen King could ask him to quickly leave the supervisor and come out, and the 2 of them walk to a quiet place to talk. The valuable experience of marrying his daughter to the son of the Chen family made Ximen King understand a truth. It turns out that marriage can change the destiny, not only of women, but of men too. Therefore, Ximen King is very happy to meet Mrs. Su. At least she can give her a beautiful girl like Chiang Mai. Indeed, Ximen King guessed that the godlike Mrs. Zhu was giving him benefits again this time. She came to propose marriage to the mysterious and strange woman Meng Yulu. 3. Marrying a wife should be like Meng Yulu. Marrying a man should be like Ximen King. It can be said about marriage that marriage is a matter for the matchmaker alone. Whether they love or not is a matter for both men and women, but marriage is a matter for 2 families. Regarding the marriage of Ming Yuzheng and Jin Ping Mei, which is almost the only positive description, we will analyze it from the above 3 levels. Let's talk about the matchmaker first. The godlike sister-in-law Zhu. The matchmaker started working hard for a marriage, which must have originated from the need of at least one party. According to the text, it was probably Meng Yulu who first proposed it. The person Zhu's sister-in-law was looking for a widowed woman with wealth and no children was Simon King. Her starting point is such that, first, Simon King is rich and can afford to marry Meng Yulu and pay her high agency fees. I arranged this marriage for you, old man, and I hope you will have 2 rooms to live in. Before looking for Simon King, she even made an offer. Secondly, you have to find an opportunity to collect the credit when buying Chiang Mai. In order to realize the matchmaker's wish, it depends on whether the man and the woman are satisfied. Originally, most of the blind dates in ancient times were based on the orders of parents and matchmakers. But Simon King and Meng Yulu were special cases because the former had no parents, and the latter had no choice but to remarry. Let's take a look at how Mrs. Zhu promoted the target to the 2 parties. To Simon King, sister-in-law Zhu's first words were, "I have a good penny in my hand." The rest may be true or false, but there was a wonderful ending. "I can play the ukulele well again." A high-ranking official. If you see him, he will be on top of it with just 1 arrow. It can be said that Mrs. Zhu knows Simon King very well and knows his preferences very accurately. When Simon King heard this, it was all in his heart. As a businessman, Simon King was far more sensitive to money than others. As a son of a wanderer, Simon King also liked those who played and sang opera far more than others. All these determined that Simon King is full of interest in Meng Yulu. To Meng Yulu, who doesn't know his name, he is one of the richest men in King County. He is famous for selling herbal medicines to pay off the debts of officials. Simon King, the magistrates and prefects all have contacts with him. Recently, he married Admiral Young of Tokyo. They are both from the 4th family. In-laws, no one dares to mess with him. It's very straightforward. It's nothing more than 2 things, wealth and power. For Meng Yulu, I was very fond of him when I saw his charming character. She saw that he was tall and handsome, heard that he was rich, and was married to an official family. To her, he was the 2nd generation of a tall, rich, handsome man, and an official. For a 30-year-old widow, could there be a more satisfactory partner? On this psychological basis, the 2 met grandly. Simon King selected a man who was well-dressed, riding a white horse, and followed by 2 young men. This was to arm himself with all his strength. After Meng Yulu dressed up dignifiedly, he came out to see Simon King with rings, fragrant orchids, and musk deer. This was a combination of vision, hearing, and smell. Simon King was of course full of joy at the first sight. The woman walked down the hall, looked at Bujung and said a blessing, and sat down on the chair opposite. Simon King looked at him without blinking, and the woman lowered her head. At this time, Simon King was sitting, and Meng Yulu was tall, but she was looking up to salute. Obviously, Meng Yulu's appearance was not very low. When Simon King used his eyes that were used to looking at Feng Yu, as he stared at her, she put her head down again. We have made an in-depth analysis of bowing down in the previous article, and here Meng Yulu also bows down, and each of them has its own merits. The following dialogue shows how satisfied the 2 are with each other. Meng Yulu only asked 1 sentence, answered 1 sentence, made 1 action, and then asked about the date of the ceremony. She asked about Simon King's age, and she answered her own age. Although Meng Yulu was 2 years older, neither party minded. So Meng Yulu handed the tea and made an elegant gesture, wiping off the cup with his delicate hands. Border water stains. We will analyze this in detail again after Wang Liuer appears. Later, the marriage was confirmed, and the matter of Miss Young was mentioned. At this time, Mrs. Zhu's foresight came into play, and Meng Yulu just replied calmly, "It's what the girl said, and it's fine." Just these 3 words good again expressed all her thoughts. It was already good before, so it became even more good. The 2 people are satisfied with each other, but what about the 2 families? There is no problem for Simon King to make his own decisions without a father or mother. Meng Yulu's young family still has 2 elders who can speak, so let's briefly analyze it. Miss Young. In Jin Ping Mei, girl usually refers to aunt. Miss Young made two requests to Simon King. One is to get a coffin book, and the other is to maintain the relationship and make some money during holidays. In general, as long as she has money, she doesn't care whether she grows big or small, whether she is happy or not. The shrewd Simon King knew with the sole of his feet that this was a hugely profitable investment. So he immediately generously presented him with 100 taels of snowflake silver. Sister-in-law Zhu knew the details about Miss Young, so she used a martial arts jargon to knock her down with one punch. From one arrow to the top to one punch to knock her down, a marriage instantly turned into an easy little fight. Zhang Si is Meng Yulu's late husband's uncle. After his eldest nephew passed away, he chose to assist his younger nephew, while Ms. Young chose to assist Meng Yulu. Does the younger brother have more inheritance rights to his elder brother, or does the wife have more inheritance rights to her husband? Judging from the results, it is undoubtedly the latter. Miss Young generally knew about the huge inheritance in Meng Yulu's hands, but Zhang Si knew only a limited amount, so when he got married, he had to look at the boxes instead of accusing her of taking away the property. Zhang Si wanted Meng Yulu to marry Shang Juran in order to have a better chance to intervene and control the inheritance in Meng Yulu's hands. Everyone knew about this, so they made a big fuss and broke up. As a result, Zhang Si and Miss Young, who had no power at all, could only scold each other in the street. No matter how harsh the scolding was, it had no effect. The powerful Simon King married off in a hurry, including both their people and their property. Zhang Si was furious and stared. He and Meng Yulu were no longer related at all. Miss Young was proud. She was still Meng Yulu's girl and a relative of the Simon family. 4. A very inconspicuous but very important question. Meng Yulu was very happy to marry Simon King, and there was absolutely no difficulty in choosing between the rich Simon King and the poor Shang Juran. The importance of wealth in society at that time was no less important than it is today. Wu Yunyang, a daughter of Qian Hu, is willing to marry Simon King, a small businessman with a poor reputation. Chen Hong, who is related to Yang Jian, is willing to marry Simon, a plain-looking eldest sister with almost no merit. Apart from money, there may not be a more reasonable one. Reasons, on the other hand, as the widow of a businessman, she certainly understands the businessman's family better. Although if you had known the Tren and had the faith, you would have married into a trendy boy. But the poor and lowly couple still have everything to worry about. She must have a powerful businessman like Simon King to make her wealth safer and more substantial, to be able to get rid of the threats of other male forces in the family, and to have a happier future than living with her inheritance. Therefore, she chose Simon King without hesitation. However, later on, she felt Sister Yu is sour. More directly, after Simon King's death, when she was preparing to remarry Li Yan'e, she said what she had been holding in her heart for many years: slave cannibalism scares others. This was what's going on. Is it because Meng Yulu was unhappy living at Simon's house in those years? Why is she unhappy and deeply regretful? Let's take a look at her outlook first. Zhang Si came to stop her when she decided to marry Simon King and raised 4 objections, and Meng Yulu responded one by one. 1. Simon King controls the government and is a ruthless man. There was a decent lady in his house, and there were many concubines and maids in the house. Meng Yulu believes that everyone has 3 wives and 4 concubines, and there is nothing he can do if he marries a Shangju man and continues to take concubines. If there is a eldest wife, I would rather let him be my sister. 2. Simon King was only responsible for beating and destroying his wife, but also for picking and selling people. If he didn't like it, he would sell it to the matchmaker. Meng Yulu thought, firstly, I can be diligent and save trouble, and secondly, I can control my fortune, so there is no reason to attack me. 3. Simon King also has a 14-year-old unmarried daughter. In fact, she was already married, but she came back later. Meng Yulu thought, when I went to his house, I treated the children well and was not worried. Of course, later on, Meng Yulu did not treat the children well, for a simple reason, and Simon King did not necessarily treat the children well either. 4. Simon King's journey has stopped, and he sleeps outside in flowers and willows. It is both fictitious on the inside and real on the outside, so few people are in debt. Meng Yulu believes that it is not surprising that young men are like this. Only businessmen borrow money to make ends meet. Those who owe money are not necessarily uncles, but those who dare to owe money and can repay it. Indeed, what Zhang Si said was basically correct, but what Meng Yulu said was also basically correct. These dialogues also foreshadowed her smooth and self-protective attitude in the Ximen family in the future. In other words, these are not hard and fast contradictions. The prodigal can come back and relationships can be managed. So, what is the hard contradiction? This is the detail below. Embroidered portrait version. Simon King said, "My wife has been dead for a long time. I want to marry her to manage the family affairs. I don't know what your wishes are." The first sentence the two of them said was, "I want to marry my wife," which was really straight to the point. But what about managing household affairs? Are you looking for a housekeeper? Still looking to fill a house? The original text of the poem. Simon King said, "My wife has been dead for a long time. I want to marry a lady to get started and manage the family affairs. I don't know what I want to do." Obviously, there is a getting started here. Regarding this matter, Meng Yulu later asks sister-in-law Zhu, "But I don't know if there is anyone in the room. How do you feel about it?" The sly sister-in-law Zhu replied, "Good grandma, there is someone in the room." Who is the brain? The person in the house here means concubine, which means that Meng Yulu thought wholeheartedly that Simon King's wife had been dead for a long time and he married her to fill a house in the past and become his wife. Judging from the conclusion, getting started is the right way in the Chihu version is deliberately deceptive and looks too bad, while the Shukshu version barely makes sense, which can be said to be deliberately concealed or vague. It was this vague idea of managing household affairs that coaxed Meng Yulu to marry into the Ximen family naively, but she ended up becoming the third mother. Zhang Si once reminded that there was an eldest lady in Ximen's family, but Meng Yulu thought this was a deliberate attempt to cause trouble and refused to pay attention. In fact, given Meng Yulu's family conditions, it is not difficult to find out the facts and make a decision. So why should he marry Ximen King so eagerly and hastily? There can only be one reason. In her eyes, this man is indeed too good. However, no matter how good they are, the difference between being a wife or a concubine is too big for a woman. All readers should remember this important issue, which will directly affect the multiple interpretations of Meng Yulu in the following chapters. From this perspective, look at Meng Yulu, Pan Jinlian, Li Ping'er, especially Wu Yunyang, who devoted her life to maintaining her status as the head wife. Confrontation will also be more interesting.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.